Hi there, it is 3:30 on Friday the 6th of December at the time of recording, and as I speak, Storm Darragh is approaching, expected to hit the UK overnight and continue to bring significant impacts across the country due to wind, rain and even some snow throughout Saturday and into Sunday. Lots of weather warnings in force, and the best advice is to stay up to date with the weather warnings and travel plans as well if you've got any through the weekend, because this is going to be a very dangerous storm. In fact, in some parts of the south and southwest, it could be the most dangerous storm since at least Storm Eunice back in February 2022. So in this video, I want to give an overview of what we can expect from the weather and the impacts and how you can stay safe from Storm Darragh. Now, at the time of recording, as I mentioned, Storm Darragh is rapidly approaching. It's been a relatively calm day across the UK, having seen a different area of low pressure bring wet and windy weather through the UK last night. That's now clearing into the continent, and here's Storm Darragh. Now, over the next few hours, it moves into the UK and crosses the country effectively through midpoint of the country overnight and moves into the North Sea during Saturday morning. Meanwhile, not only is Storm Darragh a deep area of low pressure, but there's this huge area of high pressure to the west of the UK, and that's going to build as we go into Saturday. And as that pressure rises and bulges in across the UK from the west, the isobars will tighten, and we're going to see the strongest winds arrive from the northwest during Saturday morning. And so it's western parts of the UK that are at greatest risk from the strongest winds from this storm. That's why there are amber and red warnings in force for some western parts of the country. More on that in just a moment. Let's take a look at how the weather is expected to progress overnight and into the start of Saturday. So this is 2 o'clock Friday. Already the rain has arrived into Northern Ireland, parts of Western Scotland, Wales and the southwest. But over the next few hours, the heavy rain will sweep across the whole of the country. It's going to bump into cold air across central Scotland, and so some significant snow is expected above 200-300 metres north of the central belt. And the rain will be heavy and prolonged elsewhere as it moves through, but it does move through the initial band of rain during the evening for many parts before another spell of wet weather arrives in on the back edge of that low into the west of the UK. In between, as the central part of the low, effectively the eye of the storm, moves over Northern Ireland into the Irish Sea and then Northern England, we can expect a lull in the winds for a time during the late evening and early hours period, depending on where you are. Don't be fooled by that lull. The strongest winds are going to arrive after the lull in the winds as the winds switch to northwesterlies and this next swathe of very wet weather moves in. So, for example, if you're in Northern Ireland or northwest England, you might be going to bed thinking, oh, the winds are dropping out now. The worst of the rain has gone through. Don't be fooled. The even stronger winds are expected to arrive after that, during the early hours of Saturday, and the peak winds across western parts of the UK will be throughout Saturday morning, but they're going to stay very strong throughout the day. More on the wind in just a moment, but as you can see, we're waking up. This is 6 a.m. on Saturday. Many of us are waking up to some very wild weather out there. Increasingly strong winds coming in from the northwest across western areas, and these spells of heavy rain and showers moving into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales. Bright colours here indicating some very heavy rain across Wales in particular as we wake up on Saturday. And that rain's simply going to continue throughout Saturday. You can see these spells of wet weather replaced eventually by showers, but it's going to be particularly persistent across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales. Yellow warnings in force for rain, and a smaller area where we've got an amber warning for South and Mid Wales because of the risk of 80 to 90 millimetres of rain falling on top of areas that were so badly affected by Storm Bert just a couple of weeks ago. This is Saturday evening, and you can see by the wind arrows the winds are remaining very strong, and so it's going to stay very windy throughout the day. Let's take a look at the wind gusts in a bit more detail. And first of all, I would just want to highlight the lull in the winds and what we can expect after that lull. We're just going to pick somewhere there on the north coast of Northern Ireland. And what you can see is that the winds are picking up at the moment. They're picking up, these are the wind gusts, up to 40 miles an hour or so during the evening. Then they're dropping out to 10 miles an hour around midnight. You can see this steep drop. That's as the centre point of the low, the eye of the storm, passes through. But then look at that jump, up to 64 miles an hour for this particular location by 6 a.m. So in just a matter of hours, and this is overnight, by the way, when many people will be tucked up in bed, this increase, sharp increase in the wind speeds during the early hours. So don't be fooled by this lull in the winds later on in the evening. If you're in Northern Ireland, parts of northwest England, for example, this is Cumbria, 18 miles an hour, quickly going up to the 50s. North Wales as well, not so much of a lull because the eye of the storm doesn't go through, but look at the values we're getting up to for parts of West Wales, 75 miles an hour by Saturday morning and staying very strong throughout the day. So, best advice, because those winds are coming through and strengthening so much overnight, is to prepare your property, if you can, before heading to bed. So tie down any loose furniture, trampolines, Christmas decorations, all that sort of thing, because there's a very real risk with these kinds of wind gusts of flying debris and structural damage. Let's take a look on a map at what this looks like. And this is as the winds pick up. First of all, through the evening, some very strong winds coming in here. Anything coloured up is 50 miles an hour or more in terms of wind gusts. But for parts of Western Ireland there, we've got wind gusts of 80 or more miles an hour. And then those very strong winds arrive across Northern Ireland by shortly after midnight, and then into parts of Wales and the southwest, as well as Western Scotland shortly after that. And if we just fast forward it slightly to 4 a.m, and you can see this is the time in which there's a red warning in force for western and south parts of Wales, Bristol Channel coast, and you can see that there are wind gusts widely of 50, 60 miles an hour for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Wales, the south and southwest. But around some of these coasts of South Wales, North Devon, North Somerset, West Wales, the risk of 70, 80 or even 90 miles an hour. And so the strongest the winds reaching us during the early hours of Saturday, but then throughout Saturday, those winds are staying strong and they continue to come from the northwest. That's a relatively unusual direction for such strong winds, and that could exacerbate the impacts. So just to summarise, we've got numerous warnings in force. These are the rain and snow warnings. There is a snow warning for central parts of Scotland with the risk of 5 centimetres of snow accumulating above 200 to 300 metres. And so routes such as the A9 could be affected throughout Saturday. The snow arrives overnight and then continues throughout the day. 20 centimetres of snow above 400 metres. All of that accompanied by strong winds. But we've also got this yellow warning for rain, south and east Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of Wales. Risk of 30 millimetres of rain widely, 60 millimetres in some places. That combined with strong winds, of course, could cause some travel disruption and localised flooding. But we're particularly concerned about south and mid Wales, where there's an amber warning because of the risk of 80 to 90 millimetres of rain from now until the end of the weekend. And that could cause some significant flooding and disruption because, of course, it comes so soon after the impacts from Storm Bert. Meanwhile, here's a summary of the wind warnings widely across much of the UK, away from central and northern Scotland. There's a yellow warning for wind, 50 mile per hour wind gusts even inland, risk of more than 60 miles an hour in places. But across Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, much of northwest England, parts of Wales and the southwest, there's an amber warning. And that's where there's the risk of 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts, particularly for exposed locations. The red warning area there is across West and South Wales into North Devon and North Somerset. And that's where there's the risk of 90 mile per hour wind gusts, or even higher than that, between 3 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Saturday. So the advice is, particularly if you are in the amber or red warning areas, to stay up to date with transport plans, travel plans, and stay up to date with Met Office forecasts and warnings. If you've got travel plans, particularly through Saturday, the advice is to postpone them. It's simply not worth the risk. These are dangerous wind speeds and they are worth taking very seriously. Additionally, any outdoor activities should be cancelled and postponed, and make sure any loose furniture or outdoor decorations are secured, because these kinds of winds will lead to flying debris and trees coming down and dangerous conditions, particularly around coastal areas. It's not worth heading out to the coast and taking a look at the storm, because there'll be big waves. I think around 40% of people who drown in the sea never intended to enter the water, and it's in situations like this where you get very large and unpredictable waves where that risk is greatest. So yeah, worth staying up to date with all the latest information from the Met Office and any other local authorities. Worth postponing travel plans, staying safe, staying indoors basically, and by Sunday and into Monday, higher pressure builds, so it will all be through. It's simply not worth heading out in this kind of weather and taking the risk. Stay safe. Bye-bye.